I've always been the reliable one. The one who remembers birthdays without a Facebook reminder, who shows up with soup and a blanket when someone's down, who never expects anything in return. So when Mom got sick, really sick, I didn't think twice. I packed a bag and moved into that hospital room like it was my new address. The beeping machines, the cold fluorescent lights, the endless scent of disinfectant. They became my world. I barely slept, barely ate, but I stayed. Because love, to me, has always meant showing up, no matter what. Still, part of me stayed behind, at home, with Eric. And maybe that's why I picked up the phone and called Camilla. She's been my best friend since we were kids, the kind of friend who's seen me through breakups, breakdowns, and birthdays that felt more like funerals. "Can you just help out?" I asked her. "Check in on Eric, keep an eye on things while I'm here?" She said yes before I even finished. And just like that, a piece of my heart settled. I thought I could trust her with anything. When I thanked her, I meant it. I really believed our bond was untouchable, solid like stone, layered by years of secrets and sleepovers and inside jokes. I imagined her dropping off groceries, keeping Eric company during those long, quiet evenings, maybe even cheering him up with her goofy laugh and too loud stories. I felt grateful, relieved even. But 2 weeks later, I came home a little earlier than planned, exhausted, hopeful, and desperate for normalcy. And that's when I saw it. Camilla in my bathrobe, and Eric, shirtless, flipping pancakes in our kitchen. They didn't look surprised, but I didn't scream. I just blinked and smiled. I don't know what shocked me more, the fact that they didn't flinch when they saw me, or the way my body stayed perfectly still, like it had rehearsed this moment. My fingers didn't tremble. My voice didn't crack. Something colder than fury settled in my chest. Camilla pulled the robe tighter like modesty suddenly mattered, and Eric, God, he actually smiled, like we were all part of some twisted brunch club. "You're home early," he said, flipping that damn pancake like this was normal. I nodded. "Surprise," I replied. And that was the last honest thing I said to either of them. Inside, I was on fire. But I didn't let the flames show. Instead, I walked up and hugged them both. One arm around Camilla's stiff shoulders, the other brushing Eric's bare back. I even told them how grateful I was, how much it meant to me that they were helping. And they bought it. They smiled. They told me to rest. And I did. In the guest room, where the scent of betrayal didn't cling to the sheets. I curled up on the edge of the mattress, stared at the ceiling, and cried. Not loud sobs, just quiet tears that slid into my pillow without a sound. Not because I was weak. God, no. But because I refused to give them the satisfaction of my pain. I wouldn't give them my screams, my shattered voice, my broken questions. They didn't deserve to see what they'd done to me, not yet. So I breathed, slow and deep, and made a decision. If they wanted to play pretend, then fine. I could do that too. Better, actually. The next morning, I made coffee, smiled, and asked about their evening plans. While they answered, I was already planning mine. I had no idea how yet, but I knew one thing for sure. The house was about to start listening. I spent the rest of that morning studying them, their movements, their faces, the way they exchanged glances when they thought I wasn't looking. Camilla hummed while folding laundry that wasn't hers. Eric whistled in the hallway like guilt had no place in his chest. I wondered how long it had been going on. Was it days? Weeks? Longer? The thought twisted something deep in me, but I kept my face soft. I made breakfast. I complimented Camilla's hair. I laughed at Eric's lazy jokes. Every word I spoke was a costume. Later that afternoon, I took a long walk around the neighborhood just to breathe. Really breathe. I passed the old oak tree where Eric proposed, and I didn't feel a thing. No nostalgia, no ache, just silence. That's when it hit me. Love doesn't die in a crash. It dissolves, like sugar in water, slowly, quietly, until it's gone and you're left sipping something bitter. But I wouldn't mourn what they buried. No, I'd build something new from it. Not out of revenge, out of clarity, out of truth, and maybe a little elegance. When I got back home, the sun had dipped low, casting gold across the walls. Camilla was on the couch with her feet up. Eric was in the kitchen again, like it was his stage. I paused in the doorway and smiled. Warm, genuine, practiced. They smiled back. They truly believed I was okay, that I was clueless, that I was theirs to fool. But they were wrong, because something had shifted in me. I didn't need to confront them, not yet. There were better ways to expose liars, and from now on, I wouldn't be the only one watching. The next morning, I woke up before either of them. The house was still, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak in the floorboards. I walked through each room slowly, like I was memorizing it. The placement of the shoes by the door, the blanket Camilla had left folded just so. Eric's jacket on the back of a chair. Everything looked so painfully normal. But I knew better. I wasn't here to rage. I was here to record, and I already knew where the cameras would go. I started in the bedroom, nestled a tiny lens inside the base of a lamp on the dresser, the kind of lamp no one ever touches. Then another in the living room, hidden in an old ceramic vase Camilla had once given me for my birthday. It felt poetic, in a sick kind of way. I synced both cameras to a private cloud account under a name no one could trace. Every angle, every whisper, every slip-up. It was all going to be mine. I wasn't just watching anymore. I was documenting a slow-motion betrayal. When they woke up, I was already dressed, sipping tea like my heart wasn't splitting in two. "Sleep well?" I asked them, cheerful as hell. Camilla yawned and nodded. Eric kissed my cheek, told me he missed me. I smiled and said I missed him too. The lies were stacking up like a house of cards, and I was the wind. Every moment felt unreal, like I was in a play written by someone cruel. But I stayed in character. If they wanted to believe I was naive, I'd hand them the script myself. It's wild how quickly people get comfortable in their own deception. Within days, I caught Camilla walking around in one of my old sweaters, humming to herself like this was her place. Eric started texting more often, always with his phone tilted away like I wouldn't notice. But I did. I noticed everything. I took notes in my head. Times, patterns. Who left the house? Who stayed? And when they thought I was napping or out shopping, that's when the house really started talking. I reviewed the footage at night, in the guest room with headphones on, the glow of the screen the only light. It was all there. Their glances, their touches, the casual way she brushed his shoulder, the way he leaned in too close. I watched it all without flinching. I think something inside me had shut off. Or maybe it had turned on. Either way, the tears didn't come anymore. What replaced them was a cold clarity, a purpose. Every second of video was a piece of a puzzle I was slowly putting together. There was something oddly empowering about it, knowing without letting them know I knew. I smiled more. I cooked more. I played the devoted wife and friend with Oscar-worthy conviction. Camilla even started opening up to me again, confiding things she had no right to say. Eric began acting lighter too, as if my presence meant permission. Let them believe it. Let them dance deeper into the web. They thought I was blind. But the walls were watching now, and so was I, with eyes they couldn't see. One afternoon, I came home with groceries and found them on the couch, too close, too quiet. Camilla jumped up like a teenager caught sneaking out. Eric muttered something about a movie. I acted oblivious, asked if they wanted coffee. The more I smiled, the more careless they became. They'd grown so confident in the mask I wore, they stopped noticing the cracks in their own. I wasn't hiding behind kindness. I was sharpening it, one soft word at a time. Because pretending? That was my new power. Every night, I backed up the footage to 3 different drives. I created folders, labeled by date and location. I wrote everything down, what they wore, what they said, how long she stayed after I left. It was clinical, in a way, almost scientific, like studying 2 subjects in a cruel little lab experiment. But I wasn't detached. I was disciplined. That was the difference. They were giving me everything I needed to end this exactly how I wanted. And they didn't even realize it. I even bought a new planner, one with gold edges and a lock. I called it my exit strategy. Not because I was running, but because I was preparing to walk out with my head high and their lies in my hands. Some nights I'd lie in bed and imagine the look on their faces when everything finally cracked open. I didn't know when yet, but I'd know. Timing, after all, is everything, and I had nothing but time and patience. Forgiveness is a beautiful lie, and I wore it like perfume. Light, sweet, convincing. I started making dinner again, full spreads with wine pairings and soft music. "We should all do something together soon," I said one night, smiling as I passed Camilla the roasted vegetables. She looked at me like I was a saint. Eric raised his glass, clueless. I played my role so well, I could have fooled a mirror. They were eating more than just my cooking. They were swallowing the story I fed them. That I had no idea. Camilla started leaning into it. She lounged around more, even offered to help clean up. "You've been through so much," she said, placing a hand on mine. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "I don't know what I'd do without you." She laughed, relieved. Eric kissed my temple that night with the smugness of a man who thought he'd gotten away with something. They had no clue that every sweet word I said was just another page in the script I was writing, a script they'd soon be starring in. Behind the scenes, I was busy. The cameras were still rolling. I added a new one, this time in the laundry room, tucked behind the cabinet where she liked to leave her scarf. Every recording synced automatically to a secure cloud folder labeled Exit Strategy. I'd even set up automatic backups to a hidden drive in the basement. I wasn't just collecting proof anymore. I was building a case, each clip, each whisper, each smirk they thought no one saw. It all had a place, and it all had a purpose. I started suggesting little trips, just the 3 of us. "Maybe a weekend getaway to clear our heads," I offered one night, casually swirling wine in my glass. Eric looked surprised, then pleased. Camilla hesitated, probably wondering if I was losing it or genuinely moving on. I gave her my warmest smile. "We could use the time," I said softly. They both nodded, and just like that, the next layer of my plan clicked into place. It wasn't about escaping. It was about observing them in a setting they'd never expect. At night, while they slept, sometimes together, sometimes separately, I reviewed footage like a director editing her final cut. I bookmarked key moments, uploaded duplicates to an encrypted drive, and even emailed select clips to a private server under a fake name. Nothing dramatic, just enough to stack the odds. I studied their behaviors like they were characters in a play I no longer believed in. They whispered in shadows. I recorded in silence, and all the while I smiled more than I ever had before. Outside the recordings, I made moves they'd never think to question. I updated my will, quietly transferred money to a separate account, met with a lawyer under the guise of reviewing family estate matters. I even changed the locks, not all of them, just enough to make it easier when the time came. This wasn't revenge. This was a calculated unraveling. I wasn't going to scream or beg or plead. I was going to give them what they gave me, an illusion, a stage, a trap wrapped in grace. They started getting careless, too comfortable in the fantasy I built for them. Camilla began wearing more of my clothes around the house, as if claiming pieces of me gave her power. Eric acted like a man reborn, light, joking, even affectionate. They thought I had accepted everything, that I had folded. But what they didn't realize was that I was setting the table, not surrendering. Every dinner, every kind word, every fake moment of warmth was another nail in the coffin they were too blind to see. Sometimes I'd catch them looking at each other when they thought I wasn't paying attention. Those private glances, those secret smiles. I'd nod along, pretending not to notice, pretending I was healing. But healing doesn't always look like peace. Sometimes it looks like planning. I knew people like them couldn't stop. They'd keep lying, keep touching, keep slipping, and I'd be right there, collecting every drop of it like rain in a jar, not out of pain anymore, out of precision. They gave me lies, and I gave them enough rope. That was always the point, not to react, to build, to calculate, to wait, because betrayal, when dealt with quietly, holds more weight than any scream ever could. And they had no idea that forgiveness, my forgiveness, was just another move on the board. I wasn't done yet. Not even close. But the pieces were in place now. All I had to do was wait for the right night to play my hand. The day my mother came home from the hospital, I planned something small. Just family, a few close friends, nothing over the top. We called it a recovery celebration, but for me, it was something else entirely. I cleaned the house until it gleamed, rearranged the furniture, lit the candles she used to love. Everyone showed up with smiles and warm casseroles. Camila brought wine. Eric grilled steaks out back like he was some proud, devoted husband. I watched it all like a host watching guests step into her stage set. Because that's exactly what it was, a stage. I wore blue that night, Mom's favorite color, and set the mood with music and laughter. Camilla helped pass hors d'oeuvres, smiling like her conscience had taken the night off. Eric mingled like nothing in his life was about to end. The house smelled of roasted garlic and fresh flowers, and everything felt almost normal. Almost. I smiled through the conversations, thanked everyone for coming, poured drinks, hugged relatives, and all the while, I waited, because I knew exactly how this night would end, and it wouldn't be with dessert. Halfway through the evening, I stood by the fireplace and tapped my glass. "Before we toast," I said, scanning the room, "there's something I've been working on these past few weeks." A little surprise. Camilla froze. Eric turned his head, brows lifting slightly. The rest of the guests smiled politely. I turned toward the TV, picked up the remote, and clicked play. And then, silence. The footage began to roll, time-stamped clips, quiet audio, shadows turning into kisses, laughter turning into moans. The room stopped breathing. No one moved, not even a breath. The only sound was the soft hum of the television and the undeniable voices of Camilla and Eric. Voices soaked in intimacy, wrapped in deception. There was a moment, maybe two, where I thought Camilla might faint. She grabbed the edge of the counter like it could hold her up. Eric's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. His face drained of color, like the blood had given up and fled. I didn't look away from the screen. I didn't need to. I'd memorized every second. The footage rolled through weeks of betrayal, the lingering touches, the whispered goodnights, the quick exits from bedrooms that weren't supposed to be shared. Every lie they'd tried to bury came back to life in high definition. I'd edited nothing. This wasn't a curated story. It was raw truth, served straight. My mother sat frozen, one hand pressed to her chest. Friends exchanged horrified glances. A few guests gasped. One woman quietly put down her wine and left. No one dared to say a word. No one could. When the final clip ended, I clicked the remote off and turned back to the room. "To healing," I said, lifting my glass slowly. "Of every kind." My voice didn't tremble. My hand didn't shake. Across from me, Camilla had tears streaming down her face. Not the kind that beg for forgiveness, but the kind that come when you realize you've been cornered. Eric still hadn't moved. I looked at each guest in the eye, then raised my glass just a little higher. They didn't need an explanation. The footage had spoken for me. I took a slow sip from my glass and let the room settle into the weight of the truth. No shouting, no dramatic exits, just the kind of silence that sticks to your skin, the kind that follows you home. Camilla's mascara had bled into her cheekbones. Eric finally sat down, head in his hands like he was trying to disappear into the couch. I didn't offer comfort. I didn't offer rage either. That would have been too easy. Instead, I placed the remote on the table, adjusted a flower in the centerpiece, and thanked everyone for coming. Someone clapped, just once, unsure if it was bravery or disbelief. Then another. A slow, uncomfortable rhythm began from the far side of the room. I didn't join in. This wasn't a show, even if it felt like one. It was a reckoning, a reset, one that had taken me weeks to build, one quiet moment at a time. And now that it was out in the open, I didn't need to say anything else. The truth had its own legs, its own volume, and it walked right through that living room louder than I ever could. When the last guest left and the door finally closed, I stood in the middle of that room and exhaled. Not relief, not grief, just release. I didn't feel lighter. I felt precise, the kind of clean that comes after a storm, when the debris is gone and the sky is unnaturally clear. They'd seen it now. Everyone had. And there was no coming back from it. Tomorrow, I'd make it official. But tonight? Tonight belonged to the truth, the kind that doesn't scream, the kind that stares you down and never blinks. The next morning, I walked into my lawyer's office with a folder full of silence. No theatrics, no tears, just names, dates, footage, and a signature. By noon, the divorce papers were filed. With the evidence I provided, there wasn't even a fight. I kept the house, the accounts, the assets. Eric didn't argue. How could he? He just sat across the table, eyes hollow, like he'd finally seen the version of me I'd kept tucked beneath the surface. The quiet version, the calculating one, the woman he thought was too soft to bite. Camilla tried calling, then texting, then messaging me through mutual friends. She said she didn't know what came over her, that she never meant to fall, as if betrayal was something that just happened, like rain or static. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The footage had already done all the talking I'd ever need. Her family saw it. Her co-workers heard. The circle she once used to glow in suddenly turned cold. And me? I didn't have to lift a finger. Her own actions were the undoing. I changed the locks the same day. Hired a company to deep clean the house, not just for hygiene, but for energy. I got rid of every shared item, every photo, every reminder. But the bedroom furniture? That stayed for one last touch of irony. I listed it online with a smile. Gently used by 2 clowns, the post read. A buyer picked it up within hours. Watching them carry that bed frame out felt more satisfying than I'd imagined, like removing the last rotten tooth in an otherwise strong jaw. With the bedroom empty, I stood in the center of the room and listened to the silence. Not the kind that aches, but the kind that soothes. I ran my hand along the bare wall, imagining the fresh paint I'd apply. Cool tones, clean lines, maybe a minimalist reading chair in the corner. I wasn't just redecorating, I was reprogramming the space. Every throw pillow, every new light fixture was a declaration. This is mine now. Not shared, not stained, mine. I wasn't rebuilding a home. I was building peace. I took my time with the transformation. Soft rugs, crisp linen sheets, books I loved, candles that smelled like lavender and citrus instead of her cheap perfume. It wasn't a revenge fantasy. It was a ritual, the slow, methodical process of cleansing a life. I even changed the layout of the furniture just so nothing sat in the same place it once did. Because ghosts thrive in routine. I wasn't giving them that luxury. Every inch of this house would forget their names, and so would I, eventually. The best part? The final touch. A small black box, wrapped in a neutral ribbon, tucked neatly inside a silver mailer. Inside, a USB drive. On the outside, a photo frame engraved with one sentence: "You made yourselves unforgettable." I mailed one to Eric, one to Camilla. No return address, no signature, just a gift, a mirror, a reminder. They had filmed their own downfall without knowing it, and now they'd never be able to look away. Not from each other, not from themselves. I never raised my voice, not once. No threats, no public scenes, no broken plates. And yet, somehow, the silence echoed louder than any scream I could have mustered. That's the thing about truth. When delivered right, it doesn't need volume. It lingers. It haunts. It makes its home in people's memories and gnaws at the parts they can't scrub clean. I went about my days with grace. Groceries, yoga, morning walks. Strangers had no idea I'd gutted a betrayal without leaving a single mess behind. Camilla disappeared from social events. Her name became something people whispered. The girl from that video, the one who burned a lifelong friendship for a man who lost everything. Eric moved out of town. I heard he tried dating again, but no one sticks around when your past has a highlight reel. I never reached out to either of them again. Why would I? Closure isn't something you ask for. It's something you make. And I had carved mine with the calmest hands imaginable. Sometimes I still walk through the house late at night, barefoot, coffee in hand, and think about everything that happened. But not with pain, with clarity. I think about how easy it is to fake loyalty, and how devastating it is to expose it. I don't replay the footage anymore. I don't need to. The silence says enough. And if they ever wonder whether I still think of them, I don't. But I know they still think of me. Because while I erased them, they'll hear me forever.